last hour would not take place till the Muslims fight the Jews. And we don't say if it's in Palestine or other, till they fight. And when that war breaks, that they would run and hide behind every rock and house and wall and trees. The house and the wall and the trees will call upon the Muslims.
This is the Trevor Carey Show on Power Talk 96.7 and AM 1400.
It will say, "Oh Muslim." It will not say, "Oh Palestinian," "Oh Egyptian," "Oh Syrian," "Oh Afghani," "Oh Pakistani," "Oh Indian." No, it will say, "Ya Muslim," "Oh Muslim," Muslim. When Muslims comes back. Except a certain tree that they are growing today in Palestine, in that area, except this form of tree that they are growing today, that's the tree that will not speak to the Muslims.
That is the Davis Imam. Imam Amar Shaheen gave a nearly hour-long sermon at the Islamic Center of Davis last week, opposing annihilation of the Jews. A lot of people have actually called for his arrest. I was glad to do a little bit of researching and find out that we don't have those issues in Fresno. I'd like to welcome into the show Rabbi Rick Weiner. Rabbi Rick, thank you for being in, sir.
Certainly, glad to.
Now, you told me we don't have these problems here, and that was a good thing to hear. How did the Imam in Sacramento, did that make a lot of impact here? Did it have ripple-down effects?
It's Davis, it's not Sacramento, and I had not heard from any of our locals anything about it, so it has not been on people's radar in general.
Okay, that kind of surprises me, because you got the synagogues up in Davis area, some of them saying that they're going to hire extra security, I guess probably because of that area. If that, I guess it happened in our area, I guess it would probably bring out additional security here. Rabbi, tell us about the relationship that you have with the Muslim groups here.
So there are several. The major Islamic group in the community is the Islamic Cultural Center of Fresno, and we have an outstanding relationship with them. It started with our activities in the work of bettering the community, and then it's gotten to just really some amazing friendships.
Okay, good. That has worked out here. Now, do you go in? There's actually been a group that goes in and listens to the videos, because some of the Imam's sermons are in English and some are in Arabic. And in the Arabic version is where they have been finding a lot of the anti-hateful rhetoric toward the Jewish community.
Yeah, my Arabic is not what I would like it to be. I've studied it and I have some familiarity with it, but not enough to listen to something fluently. So there are organizations that study and watch that kind of thing. And I trust the people who are doing that kind of work, but it's not the area that I choose to focus.
Here's an Imam down in Riverside, San Bernardino.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He wants us to have the jihad in our life no matter what and where we are and what's happening. And that's in our heart, we accept what's true and we reject what's false.
We need jihad in our lives. It's concerning to me. Is that concerning to you when you hear Imam speaking like this?
Well, that particularly in that clip alone, no, because I've been educated on the term jihad, and jihad is, I think to give it an analogy, if we've got someone, the vast majority of religiously affiliated people in America are Christian, and if someone says that my Christian values tell me to stand up and do these things for the benefit of the community, then from the Islamic perspective, that would be described as jihad. So it gets narrowly defined for some as holy war. That is not how it is more broadly defined for the people that I work. So if you have a spiritual mission, a spiritual quest, for example, to make our community better, they could and would refer to that as jihad.
So a Jewish rabbi, you, Rabbi Rick, say that jihad that the Imam is talking about is not the jihad that when I hear the word?
I don't know. You played a very short clip.
Well, let's play it again and let's listen to every word.
I heard the words.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He wants us to have the jihad in our life no matter what and where we are and what's happening. And that's in turn, in our heart, we accept what's true and we reject what's false.
Right. So what he said was you should have a spiritual quest in your heart. You should have the mission of what is right on the basis of our religion. Now, how each person would define that is up to them. I mean, clearly, we've seen some people take things way beyond and to extremes. We see it in every religion. But that clip alone was talking about, as far as I understand, spiritual quest.
So jihad in our life, no matter where, jihad has and also a positive side, you're saying?
Well, from the people that I work with, it is positive, and the people who use it for destruction are using it in the wrong way. According to, again, to the local community that I work with, they subscribe to a religious notion that religion is about making our world a better place, which is what my religious background is as well. And so to engage in religious expression is to be constructive, positive, and to make our world a better place.
So there's a positive jihad.
They would absolutely use that term in that way. In fact, many, because of the sensitivity to that term, don't use it because it gets misconstrued. But from the education I've received in that, I can't just hear someone use the term jihad and then make a judgment on whether that's a negative or positive.
Okay. That kind of surprises me.
So
it seems like
to give you a little
major deception on their part, but go ahead.
Well, no, to give you a little background, just that I'm not just making things up. My undergraduate education is in comparative religious studies from one of the foremost religious studies institutions in the country, not from a religious background, from a comparative religious. It's a public university that doesn't teach religion but teaches about religion. So I've learned to study religion from the scholarly perspective and not to necessarily get clouded over by the things that we might look at and make a snap judgment without the understanding of the entire context, the background. Does religion get abused? Absolutely. I have not seen any religion that doesn't get abused. Fortunately, and what I like to focus on is the positive, what we can do constructively with it, and our partnerships here with the Muslim community are outstanding, strong, wonderful. They've been some of the models of how we engage in civic improvement.
Okay. Well, you said, and I looked at your bio here. You studied religious studies at University of California, Santa Barbara, right? What changed before these religious studies? Your worldview of religion before you went into studies when you were a younger man. Then you come out and you're educated. What changed? I mean, what changed in your mind?
Well, I wouldn't describe it as a change. I come from a background where the notion, in the words of Dr. Martin Luther King, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, is to judge someone by the content of their character, not by the superficial. And so to look at someone and see the outward signs of religion or race or ethnicity is not the way to figure out who they are. And from my religious background, so growing up in a Reformed Jewish household. Reform is I'm careful about the use of terminology. It's the more modern on the religious spectrum of Judaism. Our notion is to engage in the world around us, make the world a better place. And so watching my rabbi growing up who had strong partnerships with the Christian leaders in the community, I didn't know Muslim leaders in the community there. Where I worked before this, we did not have a strong Muslim presence. The Muslim presence here in Fresno is active in interfaith work and is just an absolute joy to work with.
Do you think the local Muslims here in Fresno should denounce those words from the Imam? Do you think the Islamic Center of Davis should have stood up. I mean, if you had a Baptist preacher, hey, let me say, if you had a Baptist preacher calling for the destruction of Muslims, you'd have every TV station outside his church.
I got a chance to read a little bit of the accounts of it, and at least one member of the board from the Islamic Center in Davis said, no, this is not good.
Okay. Good.
So internally they did that. The reason I wouldn't call for our local Muslim community necessarily to denounce this is because I got to tell you, every other week, if not more, they're being asked to denounce something and denounce. At a certain point, enough already. We know this community. We know that they denounce the use of violence, and they are all in for productive and constructive engagement. So there's a certain point where, am I going to ask when whatever group does something wrong, how many times do we have to ask them to denounce it? I can look and see that so many of the times that these things have come up, our local center has done it. Just as, when I look at bad acts coming out of the Jewish community, I absolutely will denounce them. I don't catch all of them. So if people look at the pattern of what I will speak out on, the use of violence is never acceptable.
If there was any instance to denounce, it seemed like calling for the annihilation. I mean, this is right up there at the top of some of the worst threats coming from an Islamic center toward the Jewish community.
Well, except I haven't seen a ton of press on it. So
that doesn't mean it's not real.
Well, but, am I going to... There's a certain point where speaking out on something gives it more attention. If there was no major attention locally, and I hadn't heard about it really, then do we give it additional attention by spotlighting something that no one was paying attention to?
In this case, calling for the death of people, I say, and in this case with this imam down in Southern California here.
And then they will call in their fighting, Ya la tharati Khaybar. Where is Khaybar? They will go back to it. And they will make every Muslim's pay one way or the other. Wake up. It is time to be a Muslim. Prayers is not the only things.
So those kind of comments, obviously not as damning of words. Here's the Davis Imam president.
Our community is known to have strong ties with the Jewish community, and this is something we pride ourselves with. And to have that be tested and to have that be questioned is actually very stressful for us. It's been a rough couple of days because we want to get across that we do not have this animosity. Excerpts don't explain the full context of the Friday sermon itself. And those words were in fact directed at oppressors, so Israeli regimes that are oppressing Palestinians, not at Jews generally.
So to me, it sounds like we weren't talking about 1 million people. We were talking about 10, whether it's 10 or 1 million. He said they were talking about the Jews with the mosque where they had the terrorist shooting in Israel, where they put the security.
Yeah, it wasn't in the mosque. It was on the Temple Mount, which is a larger compound. You've got the shrine, the Dome of the Rock, and then across from it is Al-Aqsa Mosque. I've been in both of those. I lived in Israel.
It's not the Al-Aqsa Mosque?
Al-Aqsa.
Al-Aqsa Mosque? In Old Jerusalem, Old City?
A-Q-S-A. If you're writing in English, so Al-Aqsa, in the compound itself. This is where the ancient Temple of Jerusalem.
That's where the
stood.
officers were killed, though.
Yeah, not in the mosque itself. The officers are usually stationed at the entrances to the Temple Mount area where that takes place.
Rabbi, explain that conflict over there right now. Explain that conflict at the Holy. Do we got 3 hours? Is that what the?
Yeah, I mean that's and if you do a PhD program on it, you're still not going to solve the problem. So going back for centuries, there have been multiple peoples living in the land, and the question is, how do we assure human rights for everybody who's living in the land and security for all those people as well? There are times where the Palestinian population and the Israeli population have partnered better for security and for peace, and times where it inflames. Clearly, when you have the case of a group that is not feeling like they're able to have their own self-determination, it's not going to work out. But at the same time, you have to assure security. And so it's a complex situation, and the old city of Jerusalem is is quite cramped. So there are, you have 4 quarters in the old city. The Armenian quarter is the smallest. The Christian quarter, the Muslim quarter, the Arab, and both the Christian and Muslim quarters are Arab. So it's Arab, Christian, and Arab Muslim, and then you have the Jewish quarter, and there's and it's all within a walled city. It's
give us here in town
small.
how so people know how small. Like it'd be from like what street to what street, the size. Ballpark me here. Is it half of Fresno, quarter of Fresno?
Well, so when I walk from one side of the city to the other, if it's a quiet day and I can get through without being in the crowds of people, it would take me 15 minutes to walk across. So for an ancient city, it's a decent size.
And you have all these different ideologies and religions crammed into that small area right there.
Yeah, you do. I've spent a lot of time, days, hours in that old city. In fact, when I spent my junior year of university in Jerusalem, it was just before the first Intifada, the first uprising, and I used to walk down from the university on top of the hill to the old city. And I spent like every day for a month there. There was a month in between our summer program and our fall classes, and the people, for the most part, just want to be friends and get along. And the people, many of the people who live and work in the old city, just want to live their lives and get along, especially the Arab merchants. But you have, in any case, in any situation, you can take this outside of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. You tend to have a few agitators who make life tough for the rest of us. The majority of people want to just live, coexist, and go about their lives, and then you have a few people who make it difficult on both sides.
My guess is Rabbi Rick Weiner. We're going to come back, talk about, there is a lot of terrorist talk coming out of the mosque, and I'm going to ask the Rabbi if that concerns him at all. This is the Trevor Carey Show on Power Talk 96.7 and AM 1400.
Trevor Carey on Power Talk 96.7 and AM 1400. Write it down.
A story out of Davis, California. The imam up there calling for the annihilation of Jews. I thought, hey, let's get a local aspect here. In studio, Rabbi Rick Weiner. Now, in some of these mosques, are you at all concerned about inflaming rhetoric, possibly terroristic rhetoric in mosque in America? I know you got a great relationship here. Does it concern you?
My concern, what I focus on, is spotlighting the beautiful relations and the things that bring us together.
But I mean, it is happening, though. But you're choosing to not want to stand up against it?
Well, so having lived in Israel, living in a Jewish community here, I am security conscious. When I am always aware of the things that could be a potential threat. And in fact, I've had some good conversations with the management of the Islamic Center here, because some of our threats are the same. We both have a great relationship with our local FBI, because, every time I go into the building, I'm on.
You're aware.
I am on. Look, nobody who's lived in Israel is not highly aware of potential threats. And so both the management of the Islamic Center and myself and the management of the synagogue are highly attuned to anything that is out of place, abnormal. We have relationships with the police here, with the sheriff's department, with the FBI, and the unfortunate reality, especially for my friends in the Muslim community, is when there is extremism that goes on in the name of Islam, the most common victims are Muslim. We're always aware of what may be issues, but I
fundamental
think
Islamic terrorism, the victims are mostly Muslim?
I'm careful about the terminology because certainly my friends within the Islamic community would not call it fundamental Islam. They will call it an aberration. People who are calling it Islam, but according to those who live by the doctrines of Islam, they will say that this extremist terror is not Islam, and I respect that determination. That's a useful determination because when, as you say, that it should be denounced, they unquestionably every time denounce the use of violence and declare that this is not Islam. I watch this in Judaism, I watch this in Christianity, people who will take it and use whatever the tradition is and use it for horrible things. The analogy that I find useful is religion is a tool. And tools are meant to fix things, to repair things, to make things better. I can take a screwdriver and I can fix something with it, or I can jam it in someone's chest. It was not made to do that.
But the instructions of the screwdriver that came with it, if it tells you 109 times to stick it in the chest of an infidel, you're following the instructions along with that screwdriver that came with it.
Have you read the Bible? It's pretty darn violent. And for thousands of years...
But see, hold on. Old Testament is, New Testament's about forgiving, loving, forgiveness, love one another. So you're really going to use the Bible to go back over the 109 times that killing of infidels? Do
you remember that Inquisition thing?
The Catholics going across the world?
And wantonly killing people. So
but let's talk about today. Reality today. People are blowing people up today, right?
Religion is used destructively, and those of us in the religion business that I know and that I work with are completely uncomfortable with that. I never would have gone into religion if it's not going to be used to bring people together and to make our world a better place. So the constant critiques I hear from people saying that religion is bad and does these bad things to people. Yeah, I see that happen, but I'm not going to sign on to that. I'm not, and the people I work with in the amazing interfaith community here in Fresno are all people who are working towards bringing people together, building understanding, and bettering our community. And it's a beautiful thing to see. Fresno, I haven't been in Fresno that long. I came here in 2011, and I was thrilled to see how powerful and how productive and how positive the interfaith community is. The best thing that we can do is get people across the country, across the world, to look at what goes on in Fresno, how the interfaith community brings people together, educates, and works to better the community. And if we can share that, spotlight that to places where they may be having trouble bringing people together and say, well, you know what, if they can do it there, because it's not like Fresno has all of our problems solved. We've got issues here. And we have great success working together on those issues. We've brought people together from different sides of the political aisle. We've brought people together from different sides of the religious spectrum. We've done it using religion as our tool to do it. We're doing it to bring people together.
My guest, Rabbi Rick Weiner. Rabbi, in closing here, thank you for coming in. I appreciate the dialogue. We can disagree over certain things and agree over certain things. I agree with people coming together, but when I come together with those people, and if they look me in the eye and they say, well, the terrorism has nothing to do with Islam, and I go back to the 109 directions, which I asked you, do you ask them? There's 109 times where they say kill the infidel, and you redirected it right to the Bible. You didn't answer my question.
So what I'm going to do is work with the local community here who says we absolutely denounce violence. I have not had the discussion on the intricacies of the language that's going on in the text, but I'm working with a community that lives their life according to the dictates of their religion, and they live a life that denounces violence and works towards the betterment of our community. So they've figured out a way to do it. If you want the particularities on how they deal with the text, you're going to have to ask them, because I haven't had that discussion with them. We do have a lot of absolutely fantastic religious discussions, building understanding between each other. I mean, we sit together and have meals together, and we talk religion and learning about each other, and it's wonderful. And I would not still be doing it, and I would not be doing it in such a wonderful, friendly manner if I didn't trust them completely.
All right. Well, listen, I appreciate the dialogue. Can we keep it continuing into the future? I would like to.
Yeah, not today, but...
we got.
Unfortunately, Friday is a busy day for both myself and my friends in the Muslim
coming up,
community.
Right? What time does that start?
Well, the way to figure it is when the sun goes down, but in our community, we have different service times. This evening, it's at 6 p.m., so I have to get ready soon.
I noticed Hebrew Union College. Are you a Cincinnati Red fan?
No.
What's your team?
I'm from California. In my family, it's a bit of a rivalry between North and South. So we agree on the Grizzlies.
Okay, but what? Okay, now baseball. Are you Giants, Dodgers? What?
I'm a Grizzlies fan.
You won't say, will you?
Well, I'm not going to get in trouble with my wife, which is far more important than.
Well, we got a Giant fan there and a Dodger fan here, so we were just curious.
Exactly.
So
exactly. And I'm
better.
sitting in between the two of you, and I love going to our Grizzlies games.
Listen, he's not. He's afraid to talk about baseball, but he'll sit with Muslims and break bread.
Not afraid.
It's amazing. That's amazing. You got such courage, but yet when it comes to baseball here, you won't announce it.
It's not a matter of courage. It's a matter of learned wisdom.
Learn wisdom. I got it. Rabbi Rick, thank you, sir, and have a good weekend. Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.